The skies over New York City darkened suddenly on that spring morning in 2037. Not from storm clouds, but from the massive ship that hung silently above the United Nations building. Traffic stopped. People stood frozen on sidewalks looking up with mouths open. Within minutes, every screen on Earth showed the same image. A vessel unlike anything humans had built, metallic and smooth with strange blue lights pulsing along its hull. After decades of searching the stars and wondering if we were alone, humanity had its answer. We were not. Samantha Powell sat in her small apartment in Columbus, Ohio, watching the news with wide eyes. At 32, she had already earned respect in the field of quantum physics, though many of her ideas were considered too experimental by mainstream scientists. Her dark hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and coffee mugs littered her desk where equations covered scattered papers. "This is really happening," she whispered to herself, turning up the volume as the president addressed the nation. The aliens called themselves the Valerians. They were the diplomatic representatives of something called the Galactic Confederation, a union of 12 advanced species that controlled most of the known galaxy. Their leader, High Commander Zelthos, was tall and slender with pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights of the General Assembly Hall. His 4 eyes blinked independently as he surveyed the gathered human representatives. "People of Earth," Zelthos spoke in perfect English, his voice oddly musical. "We have watched your development for centuries. Today, we decided it was time to make official contact." The world celebrated. Religious leaders called it a miracle. Scientists declared it the most important day in human history. Children drew pictures of alien friends, and adults dreamed of galactic travel and advanced technology. That excitement lasted exactly 6 days. On the 7th day after their arrival, High Commander Zelthos addressed the United Nations again. This time his tone was different. "We have completed our formal assessment of human civilization," he announced, standing tall before the silent crowd. "While we acknowledge your species has made some progress since our last major evaluation, in your year 1500, you remain significantly behind the developmental curve we expect from potential Confederation members." The alien displayed charts showing human technological progress compared to other species. Earth was at the bottom of every list. "Your propulsion systems are primitive. Your understanding of quantum mechanics is embarrassingly limited. Your social structures promote conflict rather than cooperation, and your treatment of your own planet suggests a troubling lack of foresight," Zelthos continued. "In the great school of galactic civilization, Earth would be placed in the remedial class." Laughter rippled through the alien delegation. Samantha felt her cheeks burn as she watched the broadcast. Around the world, humans experienced the same emotions: shock, embarrassment, and growing anger. After centuries of believing humans were the height of evolution, the special children of the universe, they learned they were considered backward and simple. The next day, Earth's hastily formed United Planetary Council submitted a formal application to join the Confederation. The aliens didn't even wait the customary period to consider it. High Commander Zelthos rejected it immediately at a public press conference. "Humans will be restricted to their solar system for at least another century," he announced. "This quarantine is for your own protection and development. When you have evolved sufficiently, we will reconsider your application." As a gesture of galactic charity, the Confederation offered limited technological assistance, medical devices that were considered outdated by alien standards but would revolutionize human healthcare, and educational materials about basic space travel. Most humans found these gifts insulting rather than helpful. "Look at this," Samantha's colleague Greg said, tossing a tablet onto her desk at the university lab. "They're giving us children's books about physics, like we're too stupid to understand the real thing." Samantha picked up the tablet and scrolled through the material. While others in the lab complained and cursed the aliens, she studied every page with intense focus. "They think we're stupid," Greg continued. "The whole galaxy is laughing at us." "Let them laugh," Samantha said quietly, not looking up from the tablet. In the weeks that followed, many humans responded with anger. Protests formed outside the temporary alien embassy in Geneva. Military leaders around the world secretly discussed whether Earth should prepare defenses. Some religious groups declared the aliens were demons sent to test humanity's faith. But Samantha saw something different, an opportunity. She requested a transfer to the International Space Agency's new Alien Technology Research Division in Colorado. Her application was approved, though the division was poorly funded. Most government money was being directed toward military projects, not scientific exchange with the aliens who had humiliated Earth. The research facility was little more than a converted warehouse with outdated equipment. 20 scientists from around the world had been selected to study the few pieces of technology the aliens had shared. Samantha focused on what interested her most: fragments of information about the Confederation's faster-than-light travel system. "They say we couldn't possibly understand how their FTL drives work," said Dr. Alan Garcia, the facility director, during Samantha's first day. "According to them, we're missing fundamental concepts about how space-time functions." "Then those are the concepts we need to figure out," Samantha replied simply. She worked longer hours than anyone else. When others went home, she stayed, filling whiteboards with equations and running simulations on the lab's single quantum computer. She requested all available information from the aliens about their propulsion systems, but they provided only basic outlines, claiming the details were beyond current human comprehension ability. 3 months after first contact, High Commander Zelthos hosted a delegation of human scientists aboard the alien station that now orbited Earth. Samantha wasn't invited, but Dr. Garcia brought back recordings of the tour. "This is our standard educational model of a dimensional fold drive," an alien engineer explained in the video, showing a small device that created a visible distortion in the air. "The actual systems are much larger, of course, but this demonstrates the basic principle that allows us to travel between stars in days rather than lifetimes." The human scientists asked questions, but the aliens answered with the same condescending tone teachers might use with very young children. "Don't worry about understanding the mathematics," one Valerian said, patting a human physicist on the shoulder. "It took our species 3,000 years to develop these concepts. You'll get there eventually." Samantha watched the recording 17 times, pausing at each glimpse of alien technology, taking detailed notes. While most of her colleagues complained about alien arrogance, she studied the background of each frame, looking for information the aliens hadn't intended to share. "You're obsessed," Dr. Garcia told her one night, finding her still working at 3 a.m. "The whole world is trying to forget we're the galaxy's laughingstock, and you're diving deeper into it." "We're only laughingstocks if we accept their judgment," Samantha replied without looking up from her work. "I don't accept it." By the 6-month mark after first contact, most of Earth had settled into a gloomy resignation. The initial anger had faded into a dull shame. Humanity had believed itself special, only to discover it was ordinary at best, backward at worst. But in her small lab in Colorado, illuminated by the glow of computer screens and surrounded by scattered notes, Samantha Powell had made her first breakthrough. Hidden in the educational materials in what the aliens considered simple children's examples, she had found contradictions in their explanations of quantum field theory, small inconsistencies that suggested the aliens themselves didn't fully understand the technologies they used. "They didn't invent all this," she whispered to herself, the realization hitting her like a bolt of lightning. "They inherited it, they're using it, but they don't completely understand the why behind it." And that gave humanity a chance. Because if there was one thing humans had proven throughout their history, it was their ability to take existing ideas and transform them into something new. Samantha smiled for the first time in months as she began writing a new set of equations. The aliens had mocked Earth, but one human was about to prove them wrong. 3 years passed since the Valerians and their Galactic Confederation had arrived on Earth. Humans had grown used to seeing alien ships in the sky and hearing news about advanced technology they weren't allowed to have. Most people went about their lives trying to ignore the fact that they were considered the galaxy's slow learners. Samantha Powell no longer worked in the small lab in Colorado. After her initial discoveries, the government had moved her to a secret facility built into a mountain. They called it Project Breakthrough, though few believed any real breakthrough was possible. Samantha led a team of 12 scientists, all chosen for their willingness to think differently. "The aliens are coming back today," said Lisa Chen, one of Samantha's team members, as she entered the lab one morning. "They're making some big announcement at the UN." Samantha looked up from her work. Dark circles under her eyes showed how little she had been sleeping. "Turn on the screen," she said. The team gathered around as High Commander Zelthos appeared before the United Nations. The alien leader looked exactly the same as he had 3 years ago, while the human representatives showed the strain of dealing with humanity's new reality. "People of Earth," Zelthos began with the same condescending tone he always used. "The Galactic Confederation is pleased to announce the 57th Galactic Scientific Tournament, to be held next year at our central hub station near what you call the star Proxima Centauri." Images appeared on screen showing a massive space station unlike anything humans had seen before. It looked like a small city floating in space, with thousands of ships coming and going. "This prestigious event is held every 50 years, Zelthos continued. "It allows Confederation members to showcase their greatest scientific achievements and innovations. Winners gain great honor and resources for their species." The UN Secretary General leaned forward. "Will Earth be allowed to participate?" A ripple of what might have been laughter moved through the alien delegation. "Earth is not a member of the Confederation," Zelthos reminded him. "However, in the interest of education, we will permit a small human delegation to attend as observers only. Perhaps seeing true innovation will inspire your species." Samantha felt her heart beat faster. This was what she had been waiting for. A chance to see alien technology up close, beyond the simple, educational models they had shared so far. "We will send our best scientists," the Secretary General replied stiffly. "As you wish," Zelthos said. "Though I should mention the centerpiece of this year's tournament. Participants will present solutions to what we call the paradox of dimensional synchronicity." Samantha sat up straight. She had seen references to this paradox in the materials she had studied. "This fundamental problem in quantum physics has challenged the Confederation for millennia," Zelthos explained. "It involves synchronizing quantum states across dimensional barriers, something your species won't need to worry about for centuries." After the broadcast ended, Samantha's lab was silent. "They really think we're stupid," Lisa said finally. "No," Samantha replied. "They're afraid. They don't want us solving their problems." She walked to her desk and pulled out a worn notebook filled with handwritten equations. For 3 years, she had been working on something she called emergent quantum theory. It proposed that the universe operated differently than both human and alien scientists believed. "This tournament is our chance," she told her team. "I need to be on that observation mission." Getting selected wasn't easy. The government wanted to send established scientists with traditional credentials, not Samantha with her controversial theories. But after weeks of arguments and demonstrations of her work, she secured the final spot on the 6-person team. 2 months later, Samantha and 5 other scientists boarded an alien shuttle for the journey to Jupiter, where the Confederation had built a space station. The human scientists would stay there for orientation before traveling to the tournament. The Jupiter station was enormous, housing representatives from all 12 Confederation species. Humans were assigned small quarters in what was clearly the lowest level of the station. The walls were plain, the beds uncomfortable. "Tomorrow we attend the preliminary presentations," Dr. William Foster, the mission leader, told them. "Remember, we are observers only. We are here to learn, not to embarrass Earth further." That night, Samantha couldn't sleep. She slipped out of her quarters and wandered through the station using access codes she had memorized from watching the guards. The station's layout was simple once you understood the color coding system the aliens used. She found her way to a large presentation hall where alien scientists were preparing displays. No one noticed her at first. Humans were so unimportant that security didn't bother watching for them. On the main stage, a holographic display showed rotating symbols that Samantha recognized as the mathematical representation of the dimensional synchronicity paradox. She had been right. It was exactly the problem she had been working on. "You should not be here, human," a voice said behind her. Samantha turned to see High Commander Zelthos himself, flanked by guards. "I was curious," she said simply. "Curiosity is admirable, but you lack the capacity to understand what you're seeing," Zelthos replied. "This paradox has stumped our greatest minds for thousands of years." Something in his tone, the absolute certainty of human inferiority, made Samantha's patience finally snap. "I can solve it," she said. Silence fell across the hall as nearby aliens turned to look. Then laughter erupted. Musical sounds from the Valerians, clicking noises from insect-like species, deep rumbles from massive beings in the back. "You?" Zelthos said when the laughter died down. "You believe you can solve what 12 advanced species cannot?" "Yes," Samantha said, her voice stronger now. "Your approach is fundamentally flawed. You're trying to force synchronicity when it's actually an emergent property." The laughter stopped. A tall, red-skinned alien with 6 eyes stepped forward from the crowd. "I am Chief Scientist Vral of the Zordaxian Collective," he said, his voice deep and rumbling. "And you are making claims that cannot possibly be true." Vral turned to address the gathered aliens. "This demonstrates the arrogance of humans. They understand so little that they believe impossible things." More laughter followed, but quieter, this time. Something in Samantha's confident stance gave them pause. "If you're so certain," Samantha said to Varel, "then you should have no problem accepting a wager." The alien's 6 eyes blinked in sequence. "A wager? If I can solve the paradox, your species will personally sponsor Earth's entry into the Confederation." The hall erupted again, this time in sounds of shock and disbelief. Vrel considered her for a long moment, then made a gesture that might have been a smile. "And when you fail, human, then I will publicly admit that humans are exactly what you think we are, primitive beings who should wait quietly for advancement." Vrel extended one of his 4 hands. "I accept this wager. It will be most amusing to watch you fail." Before Samantha could respond, the doors burst open and Dr. Foster rushed in with the rest of the human delegation. "Powell, what are you doing?" he demanded, face red with anger. "You're violating all protocols." "She is making history," Zelthos said, seeming amused by the whole situation. "Your scientist has wagered Earth's reputation on her ability to solve our greatest scientific paradox." The blood drained from Foster's face. "She doesn't speak for Earth. This wager can't be valid." "Too late," Vrel said. "The challenge has been accepted. It will be recorded in the tournament proceedings." As they were escorted back to their quarters, Foster berated Samantha relentlessly. "Do you have any idea what you've done? You've made us an even bigger laughingstock." But Samantha wasn't listening. Her mind was already racing through calculations and possibilities. She had 6 months until the tournament. 6 months to prove that humanity deserved respect. When they returned to Earth, Foster recommended that Samantha be removed from the program. But to everyone's surprise, NASA Director Henry Martinez called her to his office. "What you did was reckless and unauthorized," he said, looking at her across his desk. Then he smiled slightly. "It was also the first time I've seen those aliens look worried. Tell me honestly, can you really solve this paradox?" "I need resources," Samantha replied. "A team I choose, equipment, and no interference." Martinez nodded slowly. "If there's even a 1% chance you're right, it's worth everything we have. You'll get what you need." 1 week later, Samantha stood in a new lab, larger than anything she'd worked in before. Engineer Frank Washington and mathematician Olivia Diaz joined her team, both brilliant minds who believed in her theory. "The whole world thinks we're crazy," Frank said as they unpacked equipment. Samantha smiled. "That's okay. Soon they'll call us geniuses." The challenge had been set. Now the real work would begin. The clock on the lab wall showed 3:17 a.m., but Samantha Powell hadn't noticed. She stood before a large, transparent board covered in equations, marker in hand, lost in thought. Behind her, Frank Washington had fallen asleep at his workstation, his coffee long cold. Olivia Diaz was still awake, running simulations on 3 computers at once. 4 months had passed since Samantha's bold challenge to the aliens. 2 months remained until the tournament. Progress had been made, but not enough. The simulation failed again, Olivia said, rubbing her eyes. We're missing something. Samantha nodded, too tired to show disappointment. This was their 7th failed attempt at modeling her emergent synchronicity theory. The math worked on paper, but when they tried to simulate it, something always went wrong. Get some sleep, Samantha told Olivia. We'll try again tomorrow. After Olivia left, Samantha sat alone in the quiet lab. Doubt crept in, as it often did in these late hours. Had she made a terrible mistake? Did she just doom Earth to even greater humiliation? The next morning, their lab received an unexpected visitor. Commander Daniel Jackson, a veteran astronaut, who had been selected to pilot the ship that would take them to the tournament, arrived with news. The aliens are watching you, he said without preamble, placing a device on the table. We found this hidden scanner in the ventilation system. It's Zordaxian technology. Samantha wasn't surprised. They're afraid. They should be, Daniel said, looking around the lab. Word of your challenge has spread through the Confederation. Some species are betting on the outcome. Most think you'll fail spectacularly, but a few are putting money on the humans. How encouraging, Frank said dryly. Actually, it is, Daniel replied. 3 years ago, no one would have bet on humans for anything. This wasn't the only problem they faced. 2 weeks later, Samantha arrived at the lab to find the door sealed by security officers. What's happening? She demanded. Budget cuts, said a government official who introduced himself as Richard Keller. The Oversight Committee has decided this project is a waste of resources. Director Martinez approved our funding, Samantha argued. Director Martinez has been reassigned, Keller replied coldly. The new administration feels we should focus on more realistic goals. It took Samantha 3 days of meetings, arguments, and finally a direct appeal to the president to get the lab reopened. They lost a week of work and returned to find some of their equipment missing. Someone doesn't want us to succeed, Frank said as they took inventory of what remained. Several someones, Olivia added. I had my apartment broken into last night. Nothing taken, but my research notes were clearly searched. The pressure was getting to all of them. The following week, after a heated argument about an equipment failure, Frank walked out. This is impossible, he shouted before slamming the door. We're trying to solve in 6 months what alien civilizations couldn't solve in thousands of years. It's crazy. Samantha let him go. She understood his frustration. That night, she went to Frank's apartment with a pizza and a 6-pack of beer. I'm not going to apologize for walking out, Frank said when he opened the door. I'm not asking you to, Samantha replied. I'm asking you to come back because we need you. And because we're close. Frank laughed bitterly. Close? We've had nothing but failures. Productive failures, Samantha corrected him. She put her laptop on his coffee table and showed him their latest results. Look at the pattern in the failures. They all break down at exactly the same point. That's not random. Frank studied the data, his anger slowly fading. You think the problem is in our measurement approach? I think we've been using the aliens' definition of success. Samantha took a sip of beer. But what if synchronicity doesn't look like what they think it should? The next morning, Frank was back in the lay. Their team was whole again, but time was running short. They had just 6 weeks left. Then disaster struck from an unexpected direction. Olivia collapsed at her desk one afternoon, her face gray with exhaustion. Severe dehydration and exhaustion, the doctor told Samantha at the hospital. And her blood pressure is dangerously high. She needs rest, real rest, not just a few hours of sleep between work sessions, Olivia argued. But Samantha and Frank insisted she take at least a week off. This left them even more short-handed as the deadline approached. It was during this difficult time that Samantha found herself drawn to the university library. Not the modern one with digital archives, but the old building with actual paper books that few people visited anymore. She was looking for something specific, the complete works of Dr. Eleanor Grissom, a physicist from the 1960s whose theories had been largely forgotten. Why are we interested in ancient physics? Frank asked, when she returned with a stack of dusty books. Because sometimes you need to go backward to move forward, Samantha replied. Dr. Grissom had proposed theories about quantum interconnectedness that had been dismissed as unscientific in her time. Her work had no equations, no formal proofs, just thought experiments and ideas that seemed more philosophical than scientific. But as Samantha read through Grissom's work, she found something the aliens had missed completely. Grissom proposed that quantum states weren't things to be manipulated, but relationships to be understood. The old physicist had written, "Perhaps we cannot force particles to synchronize because synchronization is their natural state when we stop interfering." "This is it," Samantha whispered. "The aliens have been trying to create synchronicity with technology. But what if synchronicity emerges naturally when we remove the barriers?" With renewed energy, Samantha and Frank reworked their entire approach. Instead of building a complex machine to force particles into sync, they designed a simple device that created a protected space where quantum states could return to their natural, connected state. Olivia returned a week later, still pale, but determined to help. When she saw their new direction, her eyes widened. "This is beautiful," she said, reviewing their equations. "It's so simple." "Too simple," Frank worried. "The aliens will laugh at us for bringing such a basic device to their tournament." "Let them laugh," Samantha said, "as long as it works." Their first test was scheduled for the following day. They had set up two quantum particles separated by what the aliens called a dimensional barrier, essentially placing them in different planes of reality. According to both human and alien science, these particles should be unable to affect each other directly. That night, Samantha could barely sleep. Everything depended on tomorrow's test. She arrived at the lab early the next morning to find the door forced open and smoke filling the corridor. Inside, their lab was in ruins. The prototype device was destroyed, components melted beyond recognition. The computer containing their simulations had been smashed. Fire investigators later called it an electrical accident, but Samantha knew better. This was sabotage. With just 2 weeks until the tournament, someone had destroyed months of work. Daniel Jackson found her sitting on a bench outside the burned lab, staring at nothing. "It's over," she said quietly. "We can't rebuild in time." Daniel sat beside her. "My father was also a scientist," he said. "He used to tell me that the difference between success and failure isn't about having perfect conditions. It's about adapting to whatever conditions you have." He handed her a key card. "I've been authorized to give you access to a secure facility at NASA. It's not ideal, but it has the basic equipment you need." "Our prototype is gone," Samantha said. "Our data is gone. But your mind isn't." Daniel tapped her forehead gently. "Everything you created once, you can create again." Samantha looked at her burned hands, bandaged from where she had tried to save equipment from the fire. Then she took a deep breath and stood up. "Get Frank and Olivia," she said. "Tell them to meet me at NASA in 2 hours." For the next 14 days, they barely left the new lab. They slept on cots, ate whatever food was delivered, and worked without stopping. Samantha rebuilt the prototype from memory, making improvements along the way. Frank recreated their simulations with Olivia's help. The night before they were scheduled to leave for the tournament, they finally had a working device. It was smaller than their original design, barely larger than a microwave oven, and built from parts that would look primitive to the aliens. "Will it work?" Frank asked as they prepared to pack it for transport. Samantha looked at the simple device that represented humanity's hope. "It has to," she said. "The universe works the way it works, not the way the aliens think it should. If we're right about that, we have a chance." The next morning, with their device carefully secured, Samantha, Frank, Olivia, and Daniel boarded the ship that would take them to the Confederation flagship Eternal Wisdom, where the Galactic Scientific Tournament would be held. As Earth shrank in the view screen, Samantha felt a strange calm. Whatever happened next, they had already proven something important, that humans wouldn't accept being dismissed as primitive. They would fight for their place among the stars. The Confederation flagship Eternal Wisdom was unlike anything the humans had ever seen. It seemed to be alive, its walls shifting colors in response to the movements of those within. The central tournament hall could hold thousands, with viewing platforms for all 12 species of the Galactic Confederation. When Samantha, Frank, Olivia, and Commander Jackson entered, the enormous room fell silent. Then whispers spread like ripples in water. The humans actually came. They think they can solve the paradox. This will be amusing. A tall Valerian official approached them. "You will wait in the back until called," he said, gesturing to a small area behind the last row of seats. "Observers do not sit with participants." Samantha could see Chief Scientist Viral watching from across the room, all 6 of his eyes blinking in sequence. He made a gesture to a group of Zordaxians who laughed loudly. "They're enjoying this," Frank muttered. "Let them," Samantha replied, her voice calm. "It will make what happens next even better." The tournament began with speeches from Confederation leaders. High Commander Zelthos spoke about the importance of scientific advancement and cooperation among advanced species. He made no mention of Earth except a brief acknowledgement of our primitive observers who join us for educational purposes. Then, one by one, representatives from each alien species presented their solutions to the paradox of dimensional synchronicity. Their devices were impressive, gleaming machines with holographic displays and pulsing energy fields. Some were small enough to fit on a table, others filled entire platforms. The test was explained to the audience. 2 quantum particles would be placed on opposite sides of a dimensional barrier. The goal was to achieve synchronicity between them, so that changes to one would instantly affect the other, despite the barrier between dimensions that should make such connection impossible. The first presenter, a gas-based life form from a species called the Nubulons, achieved 42% synchronicity with a device that manipulated what they called cross-dimensional resonance fields. The audience applauded politely. Next came the Valerians, whose sleek silver machine reached 61% synchronicity. Other species followed, each with their own approach. The highest score came from the Zordaxians, whose massive black device with pulsing red lights achieved 78% synchronicity. Chief Scientist Viral took a small bow as the audience applauded enthusiastically. He looked toward the humans with what might have been a smirk. "As you can see," High Commander Zelthos announced, "the problem remains challenging even for our most brilliant minds. Perhaps in another 50 years, we will finally achieve 100% synchronicity." He paused, then added with what seemed like reluctant amusement, "Before we conclude, I believe we have an exhibition entry. The humans have requested to present their solution." Laughter rippled through the audience. "This is not part of the official competition," Zelthos clarified, "but in the spirit of education, we will allow it." All eyes turned to the human delegation as they made their way to the presentation platform. Frank and Olivia carried a small crate between them, while Samantha and Commander Jackson followed. The aliens watched with undisguised curiosity as the humans set up their device. Compared to the gleaming alien machines, the human device looked primitive. It was a simple box smaller than a microwave oven with a few lights and dials on its surface. "Is that it?" someone called from the audience, triggering more laughter. Samantha stepped forward, her face composed despite the mockery. "Thank you for allowing us to present," she began. "Before I activate our device, I would like to explain our approach." "She will talk while it fails," one alien whispered loudly to another. Samantha ignored them. "All previous attempts to solve this paradox have something in common. They try to force synchronicity between particles using increasing amounts of energy and complexity." She gestured to the Zordaxian machine nearby, which hummed with power. "The assumption has been that stronger fields, more precise calculations, and more complex machinery would eventually achieve perfect synchronicity." Chief Scientist Viral shifted uncomfortably as she continued. "But what if that assumption is wrong?" Samantha asked. "What if particles in different dimensions naturally want to synchronize and our attempts to force the connection are actually preventing it?" Murmurs spread through the audience. Some seemed dismissive, but others leaned forward with interest. Our approach is based on what we call emergent synchronicity theory. Instead of adding energy to force a connection, our device creates a protected space where quantum particles can return to their natural connected state. She turned to Frank, who activated their small device. A soft blue light began to glow from within. The dimensional barrier exists, Samantha explained, but it's not what separates the particles. Our own attempts to measure and manipulate them create the separation. The test particles were placed in position, one inside the device, one behind the dimensional barrier. The measurement equipment, standard for all competitors, would show the degree of synchronicity achieved. "Ready?" Olivia said, monitoring the readings. Samantha took a deep breath and pressed a final button on their device. The blue light pulsed once, then settled into a steady glow. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the measurement display began to change. The synchronicity reading climbed steadily, 60%, 70%, 80%. The audience fell completely silent. 9%, 95%, 98%, and then 100%. Perfect synchronicity. Stable and continuous. The silence in the hall was absolute. Even High Commander Zelthos seemed frozen in shock. "That's impossible," Chief Scientist Viral finally said, breaking the silence. He stepped forward to examine the measurement equipment. "There must be an error." "Test it again," Zelthos ordered. They ran the test 3 more times. Each time the result was the same, 100% synchronicity. Viral's 6 eyes blinked rapidly in what seemed like distress. "How?" he demanded. "This device is primitive. It barely uses any power." "That's the point," Samantha explained. "We're not forcing the connection. We're allowing it to emerge naturally by removing interference." She turned to address the entire audience. The paradox wasn't a problem of insufficient technology. It was a problem of perspective. You were trying to create something that already exists. The implication slowly dawned on the assembled aliens. If the humans were right, countless Confederation technologies could be simplified and improved using this approach. High Commander Zelthos stepped forward, his 4 eyes studying Samantha with new interest. "It seems," he said carefully, "that we have underestimated humans." "Yes," Samantha replied simply. "You have." In the days that followed, everything changed. Chief Scientist Vrel, bound by his wager, formally sponsored Earth's application to join the Confederation. The application was quickly approved, though with provisional status until further cultural and scientific exchanges could occur. More significantly, the perception of humanity throughout the galaxy transformed overnight. News of the human solution spread to every corner of the Confederation. Scientists from various species requested access to Earth's scientific archives, suddenly interested in other primitive ideas that might hold promise. 2 weeks later, Samantha stood before the United Nations, where High Commander Zelthos was, making a formal apology. "On behalf of the Galactic Confederation, I acknowledge our error in judging your species prematurely. Earth has proven that different perspectives can lead to breakthroughs even ancient civilizations might miss." After the ceremony, Zelthos approached Samantha privately. "What I still don't understand," he said, "is how your species solved in 6 months what 12 advanced civilizations couldn't solve in thousands of years." Samantha smiled. "Because we had something you didn't." "Superior technology?" Zelthos asked, confused. "No," Samantha said. "The opposite, being underestimated. When you're at the bottom looking up, you see patterns those at the top miss. When everyone tells you something's impossible, you find different ways to think about the problem." 6 months later, construction began on Earth's first true interstellar vessel. Unlike the Confederation ships with their massive engines and power systems, this ship used principles of emergent physics discovered by Samantha's team. It was smaller, simpler, and faster than anything the aliens had built. As Samantha watched the ship take form from the observation deck, Commander Jackson joined her. "They're calling it the USS Perspective," he said. "Seems fitting." Samantha nodded. The aliens' greatest mistake wasn't underestimating human intelligence. It was underestimating human determination. When you mock someone, you motivate them to prove you wrong. Below them, engineers and scientists from Earth worked alongside representatives from all 12 Confederation species, learning from each other. No longer mocked, humans had become valued partners in the great project of understanding the universe. "What's next?" Jackson asked. Samantha smiled as she looked out at the stars. "Everything," she said. "We're just getting started."